All right, thanks, Sophie. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining the call this week and just give you an update on some of what we've been working on. To start off the week on Monday, I welcomed Congressman Rodney Davis to Benton County to take a tour and have a roundtable discussion with the Benton County Auditor. We saw the election facility. We talked about voter integrity as part of Congressman Davis's Faith in Elections project. Congressman Davis is the ranking member on the Committee on House Administration. He's been traveling across the country to learn more about each state's election process and then potential reforms there. And obviously, there's been a lot of discussion on the federal level about reforms, so that was why this was crucial to have these conversations. We held a roundtable with local officials. Benton County Auditor Haley Ripple also helped to show Congressman Davis and me the rigorous process that they use to count all legal votes and ensure the integrity of our elections. And I think I can say confidently, I know I can say confidently, that Iowa runs free and fair elections. It's absolutely critical that the American people trust in our election system. And after that tour on Monday, I can reaffirm we can be confident in the safe and secure election system that we have in place in Iowa. We have safeguards in place to ensure that all legal votes count, while illegal ones do not. And I was proud to show this system to Ranking Member Davis, again, as we're looking at Iowa as an example for the rest of the country. And so we're going to keep working to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat by pushing back on Democrats' plans to federalize our election process and some of those proposals that we have talked about in the past. I've been working to bring Iowa common sense to the Washington. And so I'd like to start by talking about two bills that I reached to help protect Iowa taxpayers. The first I wanted to highlight, I introduced the Protecting Financial Privacy Act. Democrats have been trying to include a provision in the reconciliation bill that would require financial institutions like banks and credit unions to report transactions of $600 from Americans' accounts directly to the IRS. I see this as being problematic for several reasons. Number one, it would bog down our community financial institutions with paperwork, likely forcing many of them possibly to shut down or have to, put resources elsewhere when they need to be designed to serving our people and getting them the capital they need. It reduces access to credit and capital for Iowa families and businesses when that happens, especially in our rural areas. Also, plain and simple, it's an unprecedented invasion of privacy. It would give the IRS the ability to monitor Americans' financial transactions and bank accounts at a granular level. The IRS does not need to spy on the bank accounts of Iowa families, farmers, and small businesses. They don't need to be monitoring these basic personal transactions. And I can tell you, I've heard about this a lot on the road. Iowans do not want the IRS monitoring when they're paying their rent or utilities, or if they just make a big grocery store run. I think about families running to Costco to stock up or Hy-Vee to get a cart full of groceries. It's real easy to go over that dollar amount. So why does the government need access to that kind of granular information? And so, again, I'm very concerned that if this proposal advances, that they would have access to that information and be able to monitor transactions over $600. So that's why I introduced the Protecting Financial Privacy Act. It would block the $600 reporting requirement and safeguard against this extreme invasion of privacy. I also introduced the Back to Work Act, which is legislation that would put the brakes on the recent proposal introduced by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to extend federal unemployment benefits into 2022. I have a few. There are 10.9 million jobs open in the country. The COVID vaccine is available to anyone who wants it. Federal unemployment programs were really put together quickly for that enhanced unemployment during the pandemic to ensure that people who did lose their jobs could provide for their families. And I support targeted and temporary relief, but unfortunately, were susceptible to abuse. They were exploited by bad actors in reportedly the largest fraud ever perpetrated against the U.S. And if you look at, I think it was NBC News did an investigation, it was anywhere between $87 billion and $400 billion stolen through that program. So I think there are absolutely lessons to be learned from how it was set up. Charging ahead those safeguards is knowingly allowing taxpayer dollars to be stolen. essentially flushing those taxpayer dollars down the drain. So that's one issue that I have. But again, there are over 10 million jobs open in the country. We need policies that are going to get people back to work, not continue to pay them to stay home. So my Back to Work Act, pump the brakes on extending those federal unemployment benefits. The rest of the country should follow Iowa's lead on this issue. We need policies that incentivize work, not increase Americans' reliance on the government, disrespecting taxpayers and workers at the same time, and ultimately making our pandemic economy permanent. So with that, that's the update for the week, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Congresswoman, this is James Lynch at the Gazette, and I wanted to ask you about infrastructure. And I guess I've seen all sorts of polling this week that shows the five infrastructure package is popular with both Democrats and Republicans, and I'm hearing a lot of local officials talking, being anxious to put those resources to work in their communities. And I'm just wondering if your assessments to Iowa have changed. You've expressed reservations in the past, and I just wonder if your thoughts have changed.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, again, I don't think that there was enough for the priorities that Iowa wants in that bill. That's the hard infrastructure, the roads and bridges, locks and dams, and broadband. And I want to be very clear that, and especially with what we saw happen on the floor last week, Speaker Pelosi linked these bills from the start and has wasted a lot of taxpayer time in the process and tanked the possibility for a real bipartisan infrastructure package to move forward because of this. And this tunnel vision that the Democrats have for spending, it's very clear they aren't focused on the real priorities that Iowans want and need. And I'm hearing from our communities what they want and need. So I think we need to call for a full stop on the reckless tax and get back to the basics and have those about the targeted infrastructure priorities that our country needs. When you look at what happened last week, the number of place, right? I mean, Democrats were arguing over trillions of dollars like they were nickels and dimes. And the American people are seeing what the country looks like right now, the triple threat of government, Democrats in control of the White House, the Senate, and the House. And again, I'm disappointed that by tying these bills together, the chaos and dysfunction has been on full display, and it's a disservice to taxpayers in the process.
Is there sort of room for half a loaf is better than nothing argument here? That, I mean, you say there's not enough for the priorities that Iowans have, but is half a loaf better than no infrastructure package?
Well, I don't think so, because it's clearly tied to these other packages, right? And so what I've been focused on, James, is making sure that I'm advocating for investments through other arenas. I've helped secure grant dollars, for example, for the lock and dam system, for the Port of Dubuque. So I'm still focused on securing targeted infrastructure resources for the district in other ways. And that's what I think is the priority for me, rather than looking at these linked bills, which would essentially spend a price tag of $5 trillion or possibly more. We don't even know what they're possibly going to bring to the table. So that's my priority, is making sure I'm continuing to advocate for those targeted investments and resources wherever possible, while working to the taxpayers get the best deal throughout this entire process.
Shane Vanderhart with the Iowa.
Does talk about.
I was curious about
go ahead,
the IRS provision. Has anyone said why $600? It seems like an arbitrary number. Also, too, has anyone expressed any concern about the Fourth Amendment violations?
I haven't specifically heard any, Shane, about Fourth Amendment, but I do believe it's invasive in that vein. The $600 amount, I think ultimately what it is they just want to see every day so they can get in our bank accounts and force tax compliance in ways that they've never done before. I think what it does in essence is, again, I actually talked with a group of bankers, and they were telling me that they've seen people coming into the bank concerned, and they're talking about pulling their resources out of banks because they don't want the government essentially spying on them. So I think that this is a bigger risk long term. I think they are going to come for our tax dollars, and they're trying to do it however they can. And they want to essentially, I think it's quadruple the budget for the IRS right now, up to $80 billion. And this is a time when we need to be focused on adding more border agents, not more IRS agents.
Awesome. Any other questions on the line? Have time for about one more. All right.
This is James Lynch. Yeah, one more question about infrastructure. This week there was talk that both sides were moving closer together, towards Joe Manchin's proposal that would bring the price tag down from $3.5 trillion to maybe $2 trillion. Does that change your thinking on this at all?
Right now, it does not, because I think ultimately we shouldn't be spending this kind of money unless it's a targeted approach with inflation, with the economy doing what it's doing. And again, until we get those issues sorted out moving forward, it's disrespectful to continue adding to the debt in this country and the deficit spending, which is exactly what we're seeing happen. I mean, they are going about this completely backwards. They're setting dollar amounts rather than focusing on the policy that we need. The policy that we need is targeted funding towards roads, bridges, and locks and dams and broadband. And unfortunately, they are in love with maxing out the credit card, and as a result, they've been irresponsible and disrespectful to taxpayers. So when they're treating trillions and talking about, we've heard Speaker Pelosi come forward and say, oh, let's not talk about dollars, or even President Biden say, oh, this plan costs nothing. That's complete baloney, and Iowans are onto that. And I'm certainly onto it, and that's the story I'm telling back home when I'm talking to constituents. And trust me, the feedback I'm getting from Iowans is that's not the kind of spending they want to see.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. If you have any other questions, of course, email me or call me, and we'll get you whatever you need. Otherwise, hope you have a good long weekend, and hope you all get a good Monday off.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.